Hey everyone, thanks for coming out. Today is March 13th, Principal Profit Trader Coaching Call. We're going to do a little crypto and ES review. Now, a couple of the larger time frame investor guys are asking me when, is the bottom in, is the top in? These are very difficult things to say with any type of certitude. So we always have to think in terms of a probability. So, if we go to the ES just to talk about that, it was a lot easier for me to say, I think I was around here at this doji spinning top to, hey, call your portfolio manager and tell them to cash out, a huge 75, 50%, just something, because I know those guys and I've been in that field for a bit. I couldn't do it because they don't take risks like this where in a sense they would why wouldn't you cash in on this? And then, like, even if you're wrong here, you're at least reloading in on something, not saying you'd even have to even go in. Maybe you want to do something else with the money. You have to ask yourself that. So it's difficult for me to say exactly when this is, but I mean, this is a straight line trend drop. Now, the retracements have been very shallow. This is very strong. Now, why I'm thinking there might be some relief here is that just from a leg count perspective, we are four legs down, even though these are shallow retracements. This is a gap area, and this is sort of like this fractal zone. Now, zooming out even more, like I've talked about, right, was another principle in play that just works. On top of that triple top and all the leg counts that we could start when the trend started here up. When you break a giant fractal, and remember, there's infinite time frame, so I can find fractals on any time frame, but obviously the bigger the better. This is a huge multi-year fractal. We moved 100% of it. I cloned this, cloned that, put it on top, and we had the triple top around. They were top building here, and multiple, 6, 7, 8 leg counts up. Not expecting. I'm not surprised we've had this huge drop. Right now, fundamentally and just historically, if we just go back to 2020, we can remember when Trump took office, he also was threatening tariffs and doing this and doing that. And then he put in position into play that, some of the deals that he's putting tariffs up against even now. So this might be just like a playbook where when he starts out, he either threatens tariffs, puts in some tariffs, but then after that, there's usually this giant bull run. So that's kind of what I'm hoping is going to happen. I'll also get into um, what I think some of the fundamentals of the alt season might be, because we've talked about how Bitcoin's had its run. We could talk technically how they move in phases, but there might be a narrative that I want to talk about that might be coming up. So those are two things we'll cover. But just going back to the ES for now, right? So it's not like from a larger time frame perspective, we can say for certain that anything's in. Now, from a beauty principle perspective, if this trend is intact, there was this overshoot behavior before, and then we didn't touch it, and now we've obviously overshoot that, but it's not like we've traveled down with the downtrend that's made many different attempts and now is bottom building at this balanced breakout spot, because then in that case it would have moved 100% of the range now, and now this energy could reverse the larger time frame bias, which is the downtrend, right? But we're not there yet for a major turning point. However, if I'm a short trader, we know markets usually just don't go straight down, they don't usually just go straight up, right? But they go down a little bit faster than they rise because fear is stronger than greed. That being said, it's like we can't necessarily just ignore some of the technicals here, right? Now, obviously, right, we're doing some bottom building, but it's closing pretty bearish today. We've engulfed in this. So it's not like I was super excited really about the ES. That's why I shorted today. Maybe I should have held that runner longer. There was actually a short setup and a long setup. There was a short setup earlier that I skipped. Then I went long, and then I think I went short again. And then um, but just clearly, at the last couple of weeks, the shorts have clearly been the dominant bias, right? But now we're just basically having to say, okay, now everyone can see this trend, right? Into this high volume node here, right? Is it possible that we're going to get some relief? And that's sort of been the play where I was like, okay, the larger time frame bias could potentially shift here, right? And if we do get some of that relief, I'm imagining I would call this a micro bull bear, or I'm not sorry, not a micro bull bear. This is a bull bear zone, but it's not a major zone, right? It's not a major zone because this zone is, a major bigger picture pattern too that's moved 100%, and we can expect a strong move from it, right? A major zone would be something equal in magnitude this has come down from, which would be this balanced breakout spot. Then it would form another, but let's not necessarily saying anything has to happen where it's going to get down to that level. We just don't know, right, what this narrative is going to be. But if the thesis that this was going to be somewhat exhausted is going to come into play, we have to see some bottom building, ideally with some type of buying tail or liquidation tail to show some action reaction. But we just haven't got that yet. So even though you come in with an idea, you have to be nimble in your thinking to say, okay, maybe I'm just too early on this one. All right. Now going back to Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin, let me just clear my psyche for a second because we're getting into a different context now. Okay. Uptrend, right? Sideways, then down, right? So with this one, I'm also thinking in terms of multiple time frames, right? We obviously had huge double top here. We've had a giant trading range, okay? At least on the time frames that we're trading. So if we just imagine, okay, so where are we in this fractal, right? Have we at least moved somewhat, right? No, we haven't moved 100% of that range yet. That would take us down to this high volume node here, but we don't necessarily have to yet, right? This is sort of an indecision point for the bulls and the bears. Notice we're having a convergence of multiple time frame moving averages that's showing basically what the moving averages are showing. I could remove those and just show you the multiple time frame analysis, right? Let's forget how price arrived there and get rid of the fractal for a second, right? One time frame, right? One time frame, two time frames, right? Three time frames sideways. So it's like this time frame now is potentially going to get swallowed and engulfed in this time frame because this time frame is longer in time and it launched a stronger pattern than this sideways move that went down into it. That's a basic multiple time frame analysis, right? But right, I'm more confident for that type of a Bitcoin scenario than a complete capitulation, just from a technical perspective, than I am for the ES, simply because the ES has made that 100% range of a multi-year balance. And just based on the 100% range principle, it's like it's just looking more violent. Like, for example, at least Bitcoin has had strong, whereas the ES has just been tanking with very shallow pullbacks. At least Bitcoin is showing some value buyers are buying dips. I mean, we had a huge move up here, right? But I mean, that was a beautiful call by Corby if we think about it, right? Because when this came up into this move, right? This is a piercing pattern, right? But it's first test of this giant high volume node. And we know on first test of a bigger fractal pattern, you're going to get a very strong move off of it. Now we've pulled back now down into this fractal now, not necessarily into this zone, but the energy that launched, at least the trend of it. And now with some bottom building, I was pretty confident a couple of days ago to give a double bottom signal on this trend line because yes, as it was pulling back and making this double bottom, a dynamic double bottom because there's some overshoot. I was also confident because I saw the CCI was, inversing on this. So it's like the price was going lower, but the momentum wasn't matching it. That's adding a slight edge, at least for a temporary relief. But nowhere in my mind do I think, oh my God, this has to be the major turning point. When I'm giving that signal, I'm thinking at the very least there could be some relief for a tradable reaction long. Now, when we came back up into this, I might have been a little premature in classifying this as an engulfing pattern because technically it's not an engulfing pattern, candlestick pattern, it's a piercing pattern. But one thing that is somewhat, and I'll explain the rationale about why I went long today, which I'm in right now. So it's like, yeah, to go into a flow state, right? We had this hammer candle. Right. So at least from a candlestick perspective coming into this day, at least I'm showing that buyers are stepping in at the previous day's lows where they're saying, okay, well, this double bottom at least reached that POC last time. Maybe we'll struggle and get it again because as price is making a lower lower, we haven't even made a lower low yet on the CCI. Not that it has hit this trend line or anything yet, but just the idea that this is potentially bottom building here with that multiple time frame analysis that could potentially give us some relief here in Bitcoin. But I mean, none of these patterns have been very, very clean. There's been not really any follow through. A lot of us were hoping for sideways up yesterday, and we got pretty much a sideways. We got a neutral day that kind of closed in favor of the bulls. Neutral days are hard because they kind of extend past this normal double bottom pattern or a zone that's obvious. But in my mind, I imagined yesterday to be a neutral day. And I almost went long at the exact spot that it turned, but it's just one of those days where they just psychologically feel a little hard. But that's why I categorize those day types for you guys, because if you're thinking about these more probabilistic day categories, right, in the right context, then you're thinking like a great poker player who's memorizing all the odds, and that's the best we can do. And just one advice I would say is like just because like a strategy that you're developing, maybe you're taking some things I'm showing you, maybe you're adding it to some of the things that you do. I would say keep everything that's working. That's the only principle, like really, that's a principle to profit. If it's working for you, you have to keep it. That's it. And if there's an indicator that's not working, that doesn't, get rid of it. For example, if you guys know, maybe you didn't, but on the lower time frames, I used to have all these moving averages. Like, for example, the ones I use on the daily here. And I just realized like it's just so much data that I'm subconsciously taking in too much. I don't need that stuff. So I'm distilling things down in simpler fashion that are still giving me the right scans for odds, but then I can execute on them with more confidence because I don't have to go through so much information that okay, well that one doubts myself. But you can see here, I mean, if they work for you on the lower time frame, if they help you identify trends, for example, Kobe shared that fly setup. If you want to talk, I could talk about that. If that's something you would like to talk about, if it spends time before a certain moving average for at least 90 minutes, goes up and touches the 40, comes back down and touches the 20 again, it could be an entry, that kind of thing. But um, that's I've never actually used that, and I've done it in a paper trade, but I've never actually bet my own real money on it because at the end of the day, I'm like, that's a really uh, unique setup to his psychology. For example, I don't trade the ABC pattern. You know what I mean on the Fed day. My Fed play is, hey, this thing is usually whipsawing people and smashing them. So I really want to get in like a half off or a seven, like at least a runner in before that. And then if it works out, great. Rather than like try to enter in and deal with the whipsaw, but he's mastered like some kind of whipsaw thing. So it's like you just got to pick and choose what you feel comfortable with. So just to go back to yesterday, right? We talked about that inside day, right? And this was the low of the day, right? Yesterday, which I said, hey, this could be an inside. I can't remember what the exact context was, but this was the idea that hey, we broke the overnight range, and then we came into this. So this zone really wasn't to be trusted as much. But this technically was an area that I did want to go long, and I did hit this zone. Now, obviously, this was the automatic order if we did get here. But if you go back in time, there was structure here, right? Problem here, problem here. And if things get long enough from a exhaustion perspective, right? Just all keep in mind like how everything is traveled down. Like today, the range was 84,378 and it went down to like 79. So we're talking like 4,000, right? So yeah, I'm not saying you need to go against the trend, especially once it, broke certain zones. It's like just because there's a zone doesn't mean I'm going to take it because not all zones are created equal. And you also got to imagine, a day type affects a zone and a zone in turn affects a day type. So when there's sustained momentum, which was heavy today, you could look at the other markets. After it kind of like tipped its hand for the day, I was okay. Well, I got out of the short on the ES too soon, and I was long Bitcoin, but that's it. It's over. But that doesn't mean that okay. Now that we're closing in a few hours, right? And now that Bitcoin has moved that much, let's take a look at the ATR, right? You know, we're not quite at 4,000, but we kind of went pretty far down on a day where the relative volume is really low. It's 56%. I mean, on days when, you think if we would move almost 4,000 points or whatever, 4,000 points, but the ATR is 5,000, we'd have a day where, especially if it was downtrending, that we'd have higher than 50% towards the end of the day. So this is giving me just thinking about who could potentially be in control for tomorrow. That is one factor that would be favorable for the Bulls tomorrow. That this is like the obviously the Bears won the day. This was a down day. It downtrended once it broke that. But the idea is that, okay, now that it closed, what did it really break from a candlestick perspective? And is that double bottom pattern still in place? So, like, we're not at an area where the context is very clear either way. That's why just the income producing trades on the lower time frames have been difficult. But just from a buy and hold or a position trade, these are if you still got some faith in some of these AI narratives, I mean, these are at steals, some of these coins right now. Last bull run, Dot made me a fortune because it got to like 55. Not a lot of hype around that coin, but it's got the most devs, and there's some talks about TikTok and with Mr. The Wonderful there. So besides that, it's got Gavin Woods, but just fundamentally, it's like, okay, well, it's at 390. Last time it was at 50. The narrative hasn't really, or 50 something, 54, 55, whatever. Um, to me, that was a reload, even though this, just from a DCA perspective, it's like, well, I'm not necessarily trying to time that one. I'm just putting in something I'm adding to a portfolio. So one of the things I want to talk about, because we haven't obviously had an alt season yet, clearly, and there's been a delay, is that, like history repeats itself, but it rhymes, right? It doesn't always repeat itself exactly, but it can rhyme a little bit. This narrative is off a bit, right? And it's off because last cycle, right, March, April was really bullish, and everyone was kind of just, if it was that simple and repeated exactly like that, and there wasn't, you know, these events like sentiment in the short and intermediate term will always outweigh fundamentals. So you just had, that's why like, the patterns that we teach for the day trading, there's basically trying to take in, the sentiment on the day, like who's in control, the bears. Okay, well then we don't really want to go against the intraday bias if there's not a larger time frame directionality in one way that it could override it. Clearly, the bears have been in control, but now that we're at an area that could potentially start bottoming, it's a little unclear. So I'm neutral. So it's like I don't come in with some kind of like I know who's going to win on the day. I wish we started could go directional. Those are the best times to trade. And when we start getting into up and steep up markets, it's just like you could just feel it. Every zone holds. I'm not going short. It just feels right. It just hasn't been that, obviously, especially for alts. But here's the thing that's just from a fundamental perspective is that there's going to be a emergence now of AI and blockchain now. It's moving over to blockchain. Nvidia was like, AI was like the big darling of the stock narrative, right? And if you invested in Nvidia, you would have made a fortune. But now that AI now is now moving over into this blockchain space, and you can see like the dabbling of it. Like, okay, it may not be a big deal, but Theta, NHL, chat box integration, blah, blah, blah. I mean, that's kind of, it's like you can start seeing these things. It's at universities now. It's like, well, fundamentally, this is great. Like the partnerships are incredible. Uh, but the price is like, near the last bull run lows. Same thing with Polkadot. So just to switch from, technicals to fundamentals, great time to DCA from a technical perspective because it's extremely volatile. Volatility is our friend, but it doesn't mean it's always easy because the price patterns have been kind of bambooish, choppy back and forth with no sustained direction. So, when something that might pierce or engulf something, you think there's going to be some follow through, it actually reverses on you and it's been kind of tricky. So it's like you had it been pretty open now, you know, to going short, which, provided better setups today on the ES. So if we go to the ES, right? I think this was the yeah coming up towards the high of the day, right? There's nuances with day trading, right? Because I'm drawing a couple of different zones, right? This is the first zone on the day. Now you'd say, Matt, like why did you draw that zone? Like why isn't the first zone the first high of the day, right? That's a good question because as I'm making the zones, I'm also checking the volume and imagining what the volume potential and day type could be. So because there was a possibility based on the pre-market of all these intraday selling tails, this zone actually wasn't something that I was going to make like diminished or like, weak or a different color. I was actually kicking myself because I didn't jump in at the selling tail ahead of it earlier and I said it in the channel. So then I said in my mind, okay, well, it's probably going to be sideways. I'll go long. And then if it comes back up again or whatever, I'm going to go short. And then I gave that short at the high of the day channel, right? Great move. But, and this zone's kind of psyched me out, but I should have reminded myself when I went back and back tested it. Yesterday, when this price was there, the 80 line was like positive, right? This time when the price was here, the 80 line was negative. So what I should have done is just held that damn runner, held it short, and really made a fortune on this, right? That's when I have to really trust that quad with that internals rather than take the trade location at face value. And then I went long again and got out and I took a loss. So it's like sometimes you just have to, it rhymes, but it doesn't repeat. And that's where that added internal here made sense to buy 80, even though intraday uh bias was super bearish at this point, and it looked like, oh man, who would want to buy that? 80 line, super positive, really confident to buy. Here, also super straight line extended. But there was context to this. You might say, well, Matt, why didn't you make, was there a zone here? Well, because of the selling tail, right? And there wasn't, maybe as strong as divergence then, right? Made a low and now made another low, and 80 line didn't. And it's into this. So when you see a tail like this, you could even short with a very aggressive trade location because these are strong. You really want to see this selling tail for action reaction on a short, and you want to see it, right? Not as big, but still got it. Now here when it went down, right? Just a little bit trickier today because it was bearish as heck. So I'm not surprised that this eventually broke. Now you might say, well, why didn't you go long towards the end of the day? Technically, I don't really like going long right at the close of the ES because it does have that hour break. I just like to reassess, and I usually don't trade the night session. I kind of wake up pretty early to trade either overnight, early morning, or right when it opens. So that's why I skipped that one. This one I took a double bottom. I actually took it when it looked like this, but I didn't have the guts to post it till here. But I'll count this one as the entry. This is because I'm just like, okay, this is exhausted now. It's towards the close. Buyers previously bought, and if it does hold here, then what we're getting is just basically a 2-day fractal expansion. So not like a super high odds trade, but just based on it, basically, I'm imagining, okay, doesn't have to reverse, but are we going to get continued sustained momentum to the downside after we just went 4,000 points down? There is that previous double bottom potentially that's still in play, and it had an intraday 15-minute double bottom. That's why I took it. And, I'm going to hold it a little bit till I finance because, I went back and when I back tested, if you can just get confident holding a little bit longer in certain instances and not financing a little too soon out of discomfort, you can end up doing a little bit better. So let's zoom out again. Kind of explained why I took that Bitcoin day trade, but just going back to an investor sentiment as well. All right, we can remember SWE, that's that Donald Trump, Eric Trump have invested in this. And remember, I was talking about how AI and blockchain are now going to be the big uh, fusion. And I think that's going to be the big narrative for altcoins. And just cyclically, we just know that things go into Bitcoin. And then once Bitcoin has a blow off, then Ethereum starts going crazy, and people say, "Oh man, Ethereum's amazing. This is just how it previously has." And then it goes into these other ones. But then it also has to be the right narrative. And I think the AI plus blockchain is the way to go. And on March 18th, there's going to be an event where I believe it's going to be an announcement by Apple that they're going to get involved in AI. And I don't know if it's an Apple coin or they're going to invest in some other AI coins. But what I heard is that you want to be in AI coins prior to, March 18th, this event that's going to send things crazy. Maybe Eric Trump will announce something. But remember, the day that I posted the Eric Trump thing about the SWE thing, it didn't do anything. So it's like the news. That's why at least I've kind of had the discipline for the income day trades to like make news not really relevant. I still get swayed by it with, reloads on portfolios, but I'm psychologically with the DCA. You already got to prepare to just like, okay, it's at a great level, fundamentally sound. You got to buy. You're not trying to call the bottom because you're not, you're adding to a portfolio. So I still think SWE is going to do very, very, very well, and it's a decent time to reload into it. Um, so yeah, let's take one look at the let's take a look at the Bitcoin DOM, right? And we're still at that alt season scenario, one lower odds, but you can see there's been a lot of indecision, little starts and stops. It's because we're just going sideways yet, right? And this is this. How did I create this zone? This zone was created by just me using a stat, which is the golden mean ratio, 61.8. Just affects people's psychology for some reason, probably because it's embedded into our psyche, and it's also people, other traders believe in it too. And Also, just because technically this is a launching point in directional conviction. That's when just stuff got really bad. Now, I'm not really happy that we're here. I wanted Bitcoin to be way blow off toppy here and then craziness before, yeah, then we get, and that would really be exciting for the alts, but whatever, I'll take this one. It's we're an indecision. So it's like, you know, technically, this is when there's blood on the streets. It's the time to reload. Another AI coin, op, also very low, 80 cents. That made us a lot of money in December of last year. Let's just go when I gave that signal. It was right around here, right? It was December of 23. And then, yeah, I meant like a year ago, not this recent one. And huge moves, right? Uh, I even had a guy in the channel I talked out if he wanted to hold it past here. I said, you have money for your kid's school. You take it out. You're done. You know, it's just tough, man. It's tough. The greed takes over, and you don't realize what you're doing. It's like you become possessed, but that's why you need sometimes a coach or someone to talk you out of it. And then, definitely, and I took a risk too. Here I am telling the guy, hey, follow principle. I don't know what it's going to do, but why would you hold something after it went up 400% with like, an overshoot inverse double top, you know? If you don't like the short side, just invert it and say, man, should I take profits here? Would I go long here? You know what I mean? Like, look at the divergence kind of a thing. It's like, well, it's a problem area for sure. So that was one of our best trades in PPT. But since that euphoria, we've just been it's been trash, man. This whole year has been absolute trash for alts. Let me just check the chat. Best as coach, yeah, exactly. He, Mike Tyson had Gus D'Amato, so everybody has to have somebody stay on top of it. So is it a great time for day trading? I don't recommend day trading any of these ops, alts, the position trading or investing in them like I have. Yeah. I can't remember if I still hold this or not. I know I sold it. I reload. I have to go back and check. I don't think I do. Uh, I'm just taking a look at all these coins. I mean, they're at discounts. It never will feel right to invest when things are down. Here's another AI coin that Render. There was a coin. It's not really. I mean, Ren was huge last run. I mean, it's at fractions of cents. This is an AI coin. I don't know if these projects are 100%. I mean, it looks like it's dead as heck. I'm not saying invest in Ren. I would go in with something that's more in line with the narratives, like Sui and things. But you can't get more dead than some of these projects. I mean, Theta's at 85 cents. The all-time highs were $16, and the projects have only gotten better. So here's another one that made me a lot of money, and hopefully everyone, it was like an August 5th signal position trade. We rode it all the way to here to like 50 some 56, I think 57 when we got out. And that was a nice that was nice. It was nice. And I got a lot of shit. I got a lot of shit for I told people not at the same time because they're not paid members, but I'm in Tensor fundamental groups and people hated me in there for me. Oh, Matt just got scared, blah 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 blah. Yeah, well, you know what? That money's in my bank right now. They're pissed. They think the project's dead. I'm like, well, shit, I reloaded into it already. So I don't think it's dead. I still get good info from that people are going to go back into it, that people associated with the projects don't think it's dead. So, buy low, sell high. It's hard to do, but that's the game of investing. Let's check the chat. I'm thinking about blinding the P&L and just focus on stops exclusively because I'm still has difficulties with it. Have you ever? Okay, so before I coached with Corby, I coached with two. I had two ES coaches only because I wasn't into crypto then. This was like a lot like 9 years ago. I 100% they were said, Matt, you have to have a rule. You do not look at your P&L during the day. Now, do I break that rule? Yeah, I do. I sometimes post P&Ls in the channel sometimes, or like I used to do that for the ES, and I was constantly breaking the rule. And then even on my bot, I'm like, wow, I'm up this. It would got me out of trades, even on the ES today. I was like, oh, I did really well on the short and I went long and short on the same day. That's always been a little hard for me to do psychologically. Psst, I should, but a part of me is like, Matt, you're at minus 880 line. There's a bearish tick skew. Just hold the runner. Just hold that runner. Who cares if it. And the greed just kicked in. I saw it. So I have 100% agree with you that you shouldn't look at the P&L because even though this is harder to implement and practice than to actually say, you could even have a mantra like, my goal isn't to make money. My goal is to follow correct process. When I follow correct process, the money will come. So correct process would be not to care about your P&L, but just to follow the principles of the system. And sometimes I go back and I'm like, well, is this hindsight or did I just not execute the system well? Because there is a nuance from like, well, I shouldn't have faded that zone because the larger time frame bias is neutral and it's the same momentum as times two. So that's a 1-star trade. You just skip those. So part of me is thinking about maybe putting this into a bot where it would like very simply give it a 1, 2, 3, or 4 quality rating based on everything, that matrix that I taught you guys, that probability calculation scale. Because even when I do daily calls, I mean, how often do you do a daily call and you're like in the heat of the moment, 7 hours later, you think something's different or you don't even follow it. So that's why I have to have that overlay of that probability calculation scale in the real time where I scan it to help me not do something stupid. So it's like a double insurance policy. But if you just think about it, like I just did long on Bitcoin. So the intraday bias is bearish, sustained momentum's against me, even though it's at the end of the day. Okay, slightly max, not terrible, but it's not like it's at 6 or 7 o'clock right now. I took it 2, 3 hours early. So it's, I'm just thinking like, was that, what were the things against it? And then you say, okay, maybe what's for it? And then you say, well, it was near the low of the day. So it had good trade location, near kind of another zone that's stronger, potentially went to the max range of the day. And and then you kind of look at a scale, but really this is a 1-star trade. And technically the 1-star trades have to only be at major zones and there really isn't one. So this isn't a great trade, but I took it anyway. So I'm thinking maybe if I have this thing that overlays it, it can give me more of a discipline. And it's like, okay, 2-star trades have to be taken. It's a necessary, right? It's sufficient condition to take a trade. It's not necessarily you have to take it. 3 and 4, you have to take them. And 4-star trades are very rare. It's like a 4-star trade is like it's breaking like a multi-month balance on strong momentum, but now it's slightly pulling back a little bit. So you have good trade location too into that spot. So you have like the biases on your side, the larger time frame, the bigger picture pattern, and the momentum and the trade location on the pullback continuation. That, very hard to get those because most of the time we're basically in a sideways up and we're fading against price. So we never really have the bias on our side. At best, we won't have like super strong sustained momentum on our side, right? But other markets also is a weight too. Clearly taken along now. Other markets are bearish, so it's against it, right? Exactly. Just focus. Careful traces. Exactly. Just focus on the execution with the good position sizing and good risk management, and reduce maybe the risks 3% by trade. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you know, uh, that's why some people, my old coaches were saying, "Oh man, you're laying out your system like this." I'm like, "Yeah, I don't care because like I fused it with, they know about Kobe with Bitcoin, so I said my thing's like a hybrid plus my own stuff." I said, even if I wrote a book on it, I still wouldn't even like. It's hard to do. It's hard to follow these disciplines. You know what I mean? That's why you can write someone's diet and workout plan, and it might get you there, but it's like, well, did he execute it? So that's just what we got. That's the idea about it. But there's a chart I'm trying to look for that's gonna. I'm not sure why. Usually I keep it down here. It's a crypto total market cap. Maybe it's just taking a minute to load here. But basically, there's a trend line that's still intact. It might be this chart just taking a minute to load because I have a bunch of charts up, but um, the idea is that, there's not, even though there's all this talk about institutions, there's still not a lot of capital back into this market yet. People are spooked out. And I think once interest rates get even lower next month or whatever, we just need like a huge influx of, it sucks for everyone else who's not investing. So I hate to say it, but we need a huge influx of credit, fake money from the Fed, everyone getting lower interest rates, more money, more this, more positivity, more sentiment. But right now with the tariffs and, just the timing. Now, I'm not really big into the whole cyclical thing with the astrology thing, but there's this lunar eclipse tonight. Uh, take it for what you will. Who knows? Historically, they usually are. They could potentially show some inflection points, and it's sort of in alignment with how bearish things have been. Uh, don't really pay no mind within your system, but I just figured I'd mention it. Yeah, unfortunately, this chart I'm looking for really isn't manifesting in the way that I want it to. Let's zoom out. Let's just zoom out really quick to the weekly. I want to take a look at the biggest, like just from a huge cyclical perspective, right? So at the end of March was when this cycle, when we predicted that if we were going to continue this uptrend, that's when things would really start moving, or there'd be that inflection point. Now, I was kind of hoping things would just go sideways here and then it'd go up if we had a balanced breakdown. There's this giant hook from extremes on the weekly, right? So that's pretty good to show that this, I mean, you want quote unquote strength. In this case, it'd be weakness at the start of a move if you were shorting this. But at the same time, just from a multiple time frame perspective, right? Straight back down, hit the 40, hook from extremes. This trend and this balance are bigger than this downtrend and that balance. So based on balance versus balance and pattern versus pattern, I'm betting on the bigger pattern here. So I did. That's why I have reloaded into Bitcoin and like, I'm not saying I know that this is a holy grail. I'm looking at the same charts as everybody else. I wish my hit rate was as high as Nancy Pelosi's, but then again, she might be going to jail. But then again, I doubt it. So you know, it is what it is. I like the fact that the Bollinger Band is, in this sort of oversold region. But remember, when it hits it, it can just go sideways for a long time, right? Before it doesn't like it hits it and reverses. But I will be excited to see what happens on, where we are on March 31st. And, you know, the best that this did for us was in, I think it was January 10th, right? It's right here, January 9th. It was basically a huge signal we gave. We were basically saying that in November, based on this time cycle chart, that there was going to be right. See how it hit right here, right? Explode up, hit right here. That this was going to be the start of an uptrend, right? It was January 9th, plus the fact that markets, this was in a down market, then it was in a sideways market, and we know that markets they go up, right? They go sideways and they go down, and they go sideways, they go up. So that pattern was in play too. So that combined with the time cycle, this gave a very accurate signal. Has it? Let's see how accurate it's been, right? Kind of predicted here at this top building, we'd have a little bit of this sell off here, right? But the trend's still intact on these moving averages. Trend up, trend up, trend up, right? Right around here, balance breakout, right? Boom. Sideways, 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 pull back, beautiful, trend up. Boom, 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 boom. Sideways, sideways. I'm hoping we get something like not too much lower than trend up, you know. And then if we can get another fractal breakout, maybe this is a little bit too ambitious. I probably would have to do a clone of this, maybe up here, maybe 140 to 150 in alignment with this. But I even feel like, this has moved quite a bit, but it has not even moved 100% of this range yet, right? And in alignment, if you take into, historically how it behaves this far out from the halving, where we were in the cycle, we should have had a little bit more oomph, especially in alts, but maybe this all means, that there's going to be a delay and we'll have even a bigger one, right? So I was also so careful. Says I was also thinking about putting the stop first before the trade on a 1-to-2 ratio. LOL. Nancy has extraordinary results. Yeah, Nancy is a brilliant, amazing trader. Her strategy is very simple. Unfortunately, I'm not in that club. So that's that. So when you say I was also thinking about putting the stop first before the trade, you mean like uh oh you I'm not sure. Oh, you mean like okay, you put the stop in first so you're disciplined with it and then you wait enough for a good enough entry and then you get in. Like so basically forces you to have a good trade location and not take too wide of a stop. Is that what you mean? Yeah, that was great. I mean, that's great. Before you actually got on the call, I was saying to Timothy and Phoebo here, I was saying basically like, hopefully some of the principles that I've shared in the channel, you guys have, implemented into, if you find them useful, implemented into your systems. But also like basically the rule is like for what is a principle that you could add to your daily call trade plans, like whatever work, like if it's working for you, keep it. So that's a good idea. If that's helping you, I would do it. Yeah, I answered too early. Up. Fear of missing out is a big one. Like, could have waited a little bit right now before I went long. I'll probably take a little hit on this one, but the crazy part is like with the income producing trades, if you just look at when the system is getting you like these small losses, like the small losses never feel like trading success. But if you ever feel like you're not following your system or your account's taking too much of a hit, just go look at your portfolio. When you take a DCA and be like, oh wait, I DCA there. I just like, okay, well, this capital I have to have this rule with, but this capital I DCA with because hopefully it's a smaller amount that you can afford to lose and you didn't bet the farm. But it's like, it's just funny like how psychologically when you DCA, right, you take way bigger hits and then it goes lower and you like double down and do the opposite of the anti-martingale, the fixed percent risk model, and you feel okay about it. But then if you actually like follow a system where you're taking these small losses, which is correct for that type of what your plan is for that allocation, it would make you feel bad. But just know it's counterintuitive. It's kind of like with the buy and hold when you buy when there's blood in the streets, it's never going to feel right to step in front of that. But not to hype this event up on March 18th too much, but when Apple sort of announces that they're going to be getting into AI with whatever coin or blockchain, maybe their own, I don't know. Maybe they're going to use hopefully ones that we invested in the channel. And if not, just the idea of it is supposed to send a lot of these AI projects to the moon. I don't know which ones, but I hope there's going to be enough of a euphoria all around that enough of it will flow over like last time. Because it's like everyone's saying, oh, Trump this and Trump that. And then, people got to say, well, we didn't need Trump last time to have a bull run. I mean, we had a bull run and an alt season when Trump was posting things like, I'm not a fan of Bitcoin. So, I mean, this guy flip flops like a son of a gun. And, I was very disappointed that he didn't say that he was going to buy additional digital assets, aka altcoins, because previously in memos he said Bitcoin and digital assets, Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. He always was hitting both up, and obviously there's companies like Swede that his foundation's investing in. That's why I'm mirroring that one and went really big again on it. And obviously he also said, hey, American crypto blockchain companies are going to get taxed corporate 0%. That's huge. I mean so it's like okay, if you just look at his portfolio, he's in a lot of altcoins and he's in a lot of SWE, especially with his Eric Trump just making that announcement. And it's like, well, I don't think he would be betting on these things if he was planning on bringing them down or if it wasn't going to play out in some way. So I'm hoping this announcement on the 18th could really set off some of these altcoins and AI because I think AI coins, which we have a lot like Tau, we've recommended Tau, we've recommended SWE, we've recommended at least last cycle Ren, which had some moves. It's like shit now, so you really have to believe that it might have a move. We've recommended Tensor. So some of these will do well. Um, Hopefully, all the AI coins will do well, but they won't all survive. So just remember to take profits on all these. It's logical levels. Don't fall in love with any of them. Use a quad exit on your portfolio as well. A quad exit on SWE would have been amazing. I reloaded too soon on one position. I think this reload's decent, so I'm happier on this one. But I hit the top very well with it. I hit the first two reloads very well. Made it so basically SWE has been like my most profitable swing and position trade. Uh, because we were getting in at like 80 cents. But like some of these gurus, hey, SWE's going to 16, 17, that's the narrative, or possibly even $30. Like what's her face? Not Tika, Tia Bell, like the site, I post that stuff just to get people possibly interested in some other coins and some projects, and just to look at how their bigger picture time, their time frame matches, if at all, with my time cycle stuff. Not that I want to be like, oh wow, well, their time cycle is going to make my stuff, it's going to add to the edge. I mean, who knows the future? But they were in alignment with it, so that's good. Two different guys that I follow. So we'll see. She's also big on this AI narrative, and she also mentioned that the tax breaks on the American companies would be huge. So that's also a SWE and also a Theta, which guys, Theta's at such a cheap level. Theta's at 80 cents. It went to $16. You know, it's structurally way more sound. It's at university, so it's like, yeah, it's hard to divert when you see the sentiment diverge so much from the fundamentals. It never feels right to recommend it, but I just was like, I had to mention it. And then like the gaming thing might still blow up. Engine and stuff like that is still around, and of course not getting a lot of talk this season, but Dot was like really hyped up last bull run, man. I mean that was a huge win for me when I got in at 680 and rode that shit to 50 something. So uh, knew about it at $1 too. So it was tough. It was tough when you see things go from 1 to 6, and then you're like, well, should we reload again? Honestly, it was just such a different time the way the market felt back then. They really don't ever feel exactly alike, especially in the days when you couldn't short, like when Coinbase was called, their professional site was called Poloniex, not Pro Coinbase or whatever it is now, Trader X. So yeah, the futures and everything, the liquidity's changed the game. The ETFs are way more, and the institutions now involved are kind of playing around. Like, I mean, last run it was like this whole thing where it was like the small fry guy was moving it, and it was like it was like the people's market and all this bull crap because eventually everyone got, some people got their lunch taken because that's what it is. It's player versus player. They're going to take your lunch, so just take it quickly before someone else does. And sometimes when I frame that to certain people that don't like to sell, their competitive nature comes out, and they do start to want to sell stuff because I've worked with people that, had hundreds of thousands, half a millions to millions in Bitcoins. I'm sorry, not just Bitcoins, but also like KDA and altcoins, and didn't sell when they got like 1 to 28 ratios on things. And, don't think it can't happen again. Okay, so for example, this trade idea case is why want to look at Cetus? Yes, I do. Why no recommendations on Monero? Um, I mean, I don't know. I guess I like Monero. I think out of all the privacy coins, it's the best one. I think because the last bull run, the privacy space was like my most like sentimental space where I didn't care about any technicals or fundamentals. So like during my like most euphoric spending when I was like obviously after doing really my portfolio was up, I was just like throwing money around like crazy. And I think I put like 28 grand on Pirate. And it was just like, taking Berwick's thing and saying it was going to go to 50 or is this and that. And, I just like, oh, you don't want to sell because it's a movement. I got into the whole thing and I just kind of got like turned off by how quickly, I mean, I know like the whole market turned, but it was one of those things where like I kind of got involved with the ethos of the team and the Telegram channel, and then they had their pirate group. So I guess it's stupid. It's not Monero, but I guess I got turned off by privacy in general. But I have nothing against it. I mean, and I guess like cyclically, it does do well towards the end of all of it because people like to transfer and hide things in privacy. And I did interview someone who was a former investment banker on my old channel called Fractal Intelligence, like 40, a long time, 2022 maybe, 21 to 22 a couple of times. And he was basically saying that even investment banks are going to want to use Monero because they want to hide their tracks. And I was like laughing. And he's like, yeah, they do. And they want to get in. And he was calling it way before uh, all this stuff was happening now. He's saying, hey, my friends at the desk, they want to get into Bitcoin. They want to get into cryptos. They're just waiting for government clarity, and then they're gonna get in. I said, like Theta and Dot. It's like, oh yeah, they're gonna get. They want all the altcoins and all this, and so that was another reason I kind of took that info a little too to heart because like I held things a little too long last time on Elon trade signals and stuff. And that's why like the principles of profit is fully like I'm always trying to share the principles for repetition because if they're fully there, it's like, well, then everyone can try to follow them as best they can. If that Caspa made that triple top and I got that private message and the guy's like, my Caspa's up 30 grand right now. Should I keep holding? I said, well, I said, if I tell you what to do and it doesn't do it, you're gonna be mad at me. But like, just think about right now, you're up 30,000. So the binary thing is like now if you don't cash it in, you think it's going to go to some magical number in your mind. You're not following the principle that you should cash in something on a triple top. And he didn't cash in, and I think it's below what he break even now. So I that's why I'm like all I can do is just share a principle because the principles don't always even work out on an individual basis. I might have like a new guy come into the channel, and then there's like principles that I'm trying to follow, and maybe they just don't work out, or there's a losing streak, and then he sees a short sample size, like this is trash. I want to mutate a strategy, but you're like, you didn't really give it enough time to actually work out because that's like the law of large numbers. But so let's take a look at Cetus. Yeah, so I mean, right? It's a down market. It might go sideways for a while, but if you're a DCA guy, I mean, this is a great price if you want to do a beta play to SWE. And I think I put like 20,000 on Cetus. You know what I mean? I put way more on SWE hundreds of thousands. I mean, I just reloaded another 50 grand on it. So it's like I'm really bet if SWE doesn't work out, I'm kind of like, okay, well, oh well, whatever. Move on. Flow state. I guess always have to go into that spiritual flow state. Where it's an NLP, right? I practice it. So like I had to go to around the afternoon, I had to take my car, get it brake checked, right? So this tractor, I'm late in this track because I'm on the screen. I want to get as much work. A tractor trailer pulls out in front of me. And I said, well, I'm thinking to myself, well, how the heck am I supposed to look at this and think this is a good thing? I'm going to be more late. So it's like, okay, make up something. I was like, okay, well, what if I went around this guy really fast and I just went off the road and then I got into a car accident up there and somebody hit me? You know what I mean? So I just like, okay, calm down. I said, okay, this is a good thing. I'm just going to be whatever. And eventually just made a left and I was fine. I was only like 5 or 10 minutes late and I got there and they're like, oh, hey, Matt. Yeah, Sheila said it was next Thursday. And I just like started laughing. I'm like, well, I'm thinking to myself, that's not what she said on the phone, but who cares? See, that's that the universe was kind of playing that. It's like, so I'm trying to basically, accept everything with the flow state of like, okay, the sweet thing doesn't work out. That's that's the way the God wanted it to be. That's the universe's intent. That's the only way I'm keeping my blood pressure in line with betting so much on AI. You know what I mean? And like narratives being off and giving live trades. Like I'm putting live day trades on. Well, I also manage this portfolio, and I'm also like trying to snap real time on the different computer, putting my position on, putting a signal, and it's like I got to check my blood. So I took that 4 day break. You know what I mean? Besides reloading into SWE a little too early, but I didn't. I took 4 days off, and I was like, wow, I need this. I came back, and I was like, I think I had like the next day I came back, I had like a really good trading day. You know what I mean? So taking that time away from the screen is important, and you always will come back. Never miss out. There'll always be an opportunity, and most likely, when you need to take a time away, you probably would have lost anyway. So that's the time you do want to take time. So yeah, so in that channel where the big tensor guys, they were upset about that. But I'm big into Tau too. I think I put 20 to 40,000 on Tau and tensor combined. Let me take a look at Tau here. So I'm definitely playing the AI narrative for sure. And this is a good place to reload. I might actually go again. Obviously could take some time to bottom build, but this is, pretty strong. Now Tensor, you know, is like, just like Cetus is to SWE. This is the beta play to Tau. So I bet smaller on this, like I think on Tau it was like 20 something, and this one maybe it's like first time was 5. This time I put half of those profits, or not even half because I made more than that. I put 10 on this one. So I'm betting smaller on it. and, you know, learning from mistakes, like, the R, right? This, straight up R doubled on me. I could have doubled my money on it, but I didn't. It wasn't good enough. Why? That's stupid. That's a quad exit violation. You got a 2-to-1, so everything you've done in this, if you can reframe everything as a learning experience and try to look at it. And I know it's corny, and sometimes like there's a small voice that says, "Hey, you're not being realistic. You're in denial." And I said, "No, it's not that I'm not being objective. I don't when I fill out my stats, I don't not look at my losses. You know what I mean? I don't shy away from anything. I post every trade or every reload in the channel. I, you know, not many professional traders do that live. They'll run a room because basically in the back of my mind, Wu Wei, flow state, I'm taking risk. Anything can happen. You're only stacking probabilities. And like basically you're not your net worth. Your value is not your trade. Your value is not your net worth. And whatever happens actually was the right move. You could just go with that. Your blood pressure will get lowered. You'll trade better. And that's how like basically I'm teaching the psychology of what it takes to go in live, and day trade on hundreds of thousands every day, you know, and not have super high blood pressure. That's the name of the game. And I know there's guys in this room here with big accounts too that have, they're putting on if you bet full size in the S&P and you have 200 something thousand, that's a lot of contracts. And if you think that Bitcoin moves fast, when I put on six figures in Bitcoin, try putting on six figures in the S&P on, even four contracts, it even moves faster to me than Bitcoin. It feels faster. So the S&P is wild to trade. But 20, 30 points in the S&P on 4 to 8 contracts, it can happen so fast. That happened yesterday. So, but I like the cryptos. I'm way more involved in cryptos because it's pretty much anonymous. In my opinion, it's a lot more anonymous. Less reporting, it's more privacy, and, better overall. So now that we kind of did some analysis, we looked at Cetus. Yeah, it's very difficult to post and stay focused. Yeah, it is. Thank you. I mean, I appreciate it. Like everyone's been very respectful in the room, and I know everyone in the room is like either an investor, trader, or both, and they're working really hard. And we try to do it 100% every day with analysis. It's not like you go to some guys on YouTube, MM Crypto. He flashes one trade he did. He put like $1 million in more Bitcoin. Now he's got 10 million. It's like I could flash one of my ledgers. It's not a million, but it's a half a million, and just talk about over and 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 over again. What's the point? I got to try to produce something of value so I can pay the rent today and not spend anything that I'm invested in for the future. That's the name of the game. So that's where we are. Bitcoin looks like it's even bottom billing now as we're getting a little bit uh, into the close. Looking a little bit better. Bottom, bottom, triple bottom. Maybe we'll get a little see a little bit. See, we had to move it once the momentum's in place. You can see this volume weighted price, and you can see the expansion of the different standard deviations, and you just know that once it gets towards the max average, like this is ranged almost what the average range has been for Bitcoin. Then it gets basically too far from its mean, and there's a principle that things need to revert back to its central tendency or mean, and you get a little bit of a move. Now, what you can't predict right now, and it's harder to do, is these major reversal moves, which just Bitcoin's just not been friendly on the long side. If you were shorting Bitcoin and even the ES lately, obviously you were doing a lot better. They just move faster. So yeah, so one last one, if you will, for sure. Uh, yeah, I mean, right I know a guy in the room who I randomly met at TDV because he liked one of my posts. I invited him to my channel, and he says, because of you, Matt, I'm not even kidding. You can ask his John Burgess. He's been in PPT full time. He doesn't go to the calls, but he was on a lot of them in the beginning, but he put $100 in Flowkey. I'll type it in the channel. You can do your own research on it. It's a European something in muffins. It's on like soccer. Soccer's huge in Europe. It's Flowkey. So he put $100 on this coin, and in his own words, Uniswap fees were super high back then. They took $50 in fees. I was pissed because I only bet $100. That $50 turned into over 27,000 and change. That is the best route. I mean, have you 50 to 27,000 is the best I've ever heard. So it can happen. And you hear those stories and you're just like, man, and I'm telling you, that's what gets me. Sometimes I just bet away a lot of my stuff when I could be like doing a little bit more use with my money on memes and things because that little gambling thing, you hear about that. But it's just very rare, you know what I mean? But if you find that exciting and you can bet small enough on them, I mean, flat out, I hired a guy, I don't know, this might have been before Tim joined. Remember, guys, I said, hey guys, do you want me to post this advisor giving me these, for lack of a better word, these shit coins? And I was like, we can mine them and stuff. And he was like trying to get me to do this other strategy. One of the mistakes I made is I tried to do too many strategies at once. I mean, it wasn't a huge amount of money, but on those coins, I maxed my cap. I lost 5 grand on them just on shitty meme coins. Some like, God, I bet like 1,000 on each on five, and it's like they're trash, So I just, you learn from those, but it's like, you hear the story about the guy that put the $50 in and made the 27 grand, and you're like, man, not sure, I haven't bought the flow key yet, but there's only so many coins I can buy. I have too many of them already. So my biggest bags besides the Bitcoin and Ethereum, like I said, is uh, SWI. Another one I invested a lot in that I don't talk about is Caspa and SWI, Caspa, Tau, Say, and I kind of slightly regret it. It's that LCX. It's an exchange coin that has physically audited back diamonds. So I was like, shit, I'm putting money on that one, and that's another one I put on it. But yeah, I we'll see. I mean, we just got to be patient with the alts. They're not dead, and for some of the guys that just joined, there's going to be this event on March 18th. Like I said, we'll keep an eye on it with Apple announcing an AI blockchain merger, which is supposed to ignite this whole AI coin narrative that we've been talking about in the channel. Um, maybe search AI in the channel or AI coin to find some past stuff. But I already kind of told you what coins were the AI that I was doing, like Cetus, say, Cetus, Sui, Tau, Tensor, so on. Theta. My Theta bag was huge last bull run. I foolishly didn't even, I mean, that was $275,000. You think I would have cashed out 1 cent? I haven't cashed out 1 cent on that damn thing. I've been staking Theta ever since. A guy who just joined my channel, who's a fundamentalist, his name is Jock. He was the first guy back in the day that gave me a presentation. Just, it's like, hey, man, you gave me a great presentation on it. I think he's a programmer, but he made $1 million on Theta. I mean, he got in at like pennies. So he didn't have to spend that much to make money. But I put like 20 grand too. I put this and that. And I think I put 60 grand on it or whatever, but total, but it went to $16. And I had like 275,000. I was like, whoa. And so, like, I'm just telling you, don't ever fall in love with any of these coins based on anything. Principles of profit. If you go look back at the chart, it was just a basic. How many leg counts up? How many triple tops? I mean, how much greed can one person experience? Because greed is one of those powerful drugs. I remember telling my coach, this is just a trader coach and psychologist. He's not my ES or Kobe back in the day, but I was basically saying it's like I don't even think I like to make money. I think I said, I remember I would wake up and my arthritis in my knee was gone. I walked with a pep. I felt amazing. I just liked the idea of it. He said, well, why is that? You had all this ability. Why didn't you just take it out and you could have had this and that? I said, I don't know. I like looking at it. It was a feeling and it's just the psychology of the feeling. But I just remember people took my lunch. That stuff is now below break even. It's stupid. I pretty much talk about all those past mistakes and then, the Elon trades, the euphoria. But you know what? I survived enough to come back this bull run. I have more Bitcoin than I did last bull run. I have more Ethereum. I haven't had to tap into any of those shit coins that I still have. Like, maybe they'll bounce back. Chica's 5 coins to 5 million and all those, but we'll see. So Phoebus says one last one is Terra. It can be later as well. What's Terra? Do I even have that coin? Let's see. Terra. Tara. Oh, let me go on the daily. Well, it's had some good moves lately, that's for sure. I mean, if you look at most coins since early February, they're not up. So I mean, I don't know if you bought anywhere in here, one, two, three. I mean, how many? This is a pretty strong topping, right? Um, I don't know much about it. Do you have a specific question about it? There's also a lot of money that can be made daily with Bitcoin. Yeah.
You think as a relative strength, it would look that is kind of like holding the levels, coiling.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that.
Remember when Koi said that it would be important to pick um, things that have sort of
Oh,
like
relative strength?
buy high, yeah, or buy high to sell high. It's something like that. He told us that when there is no RP really well compared to many others. So it's definitely there is not capitulation. And this one has like a strength that is not breaking down.
Well, I mean, it's building it's definitely stronger than some other coins just based on the technicals, but I mean, I wouldn't, feel too confident telling someone, okay, well now at this resistance zone that's pulled back on confirmation, uh, now's a good time to just based on that, you know what I mean? I'm just looking at it from a trading perspective. But, if I don't know anything about the fundamentals or what the all-time highs were or anything like that. So, um, I've never heard of it, so I can't really comment on it from
Yeah,
that. But I mean, like you said, it
the
has
the
shown some strength.
prudent the prudent to see it.
And then I just want to make one
Perhaps the,
comment
the prudent
on what,
thing is
oh,
to wait a little to start. No, but it would be interesting to see the actual reaction of Bitcoin, because so far it's still carving the any possible rebounds. It's not.
well, yeah, it's just it's basically chopping
When
around
I
here.
saw the MACD on Klee, and
Right? I mean, it's in this like really up and down, up, trading range, right? And you could see, right? This is a strong downtrend. You can see like every time it came up, the moving average is really showing that. I don't even need to show a trend line. It broke out of this balance and it bounced here, right? And the reason, like I said the other day, where I was like, okay, this is a dynamic double bottom, you know, and right, there was this bullish divergence, but more than that, right? Besides the price pattern of the double bottom and the divergence, right? I'm just thinking multiple time frames down, bigger picture, bigger balance, bigger trend, smaller balance, smaller downtrend. And just from a pattern versus pattern perspective, I had a bet on that day for the bulls. And that's another reason I actually am long now on a day trade where we're not quite at that trend line again and it could pull back and stop you out, whatever. But because of that pattern, I'm still kind of betting potentially that we might get some relief here. Like prices made continuous lower lows now, but the CCI just doesn't have that momentum behind it. But like I said, anything can happen. You have to be open to all possibilities and then, not mutate your strategy too much. Now, Careful says there's also a lot of money that can be made daily with Bitcoin. Yeah, there's a lot of money that, I mean, my income producing trades that are these day trades, obviously a lot of them are just day trades because not everything is, works out where you can hold it to the next day, right? A lot of those profit, that's how I'm not going to tap into my investments. I'm living off that. I'm living off my day and my swing trades. And, what limits me right now on how much I can do for that is simply my fear of being hacked, which I don't know if you guys remember the Bybit a couple weeks ago where 1.5 billion Ethereum was hacked. Like you guys know, sometimes I trade Bitcoin and Ethereum simultaneously. I was like telling Colby, like, man, I could have lost half my account on some Ethereum thing. I was like freaking out, and then I started, I have somebody who's my works with me. He's an advisor. I was supposed to meet with him today. I trust him. It's like, and he would never do anything. But it's like, oh, my fear went so crazy. I was like, you know what? What if this guy just robs me right now? I said, it's like, do I own anything? And it's like that fear took over. I was like, Oof. I was like, you know what? If I get robbed, I get robbed. They hack me. What am I going to do? You know, well, I can't trade on a ledger, so it's nothing I can do. But yeah, I mean, part of me feels like if I could just do it in a way. I mean, I just feel like, the hacking of these exchanges is ridiculous. I mean, have you ever heard of like an S&P futures account getting hacked? It's like you just don't hear that shit. So it's that's the only thing. I don't like to use the leverage. I don't like to use their leverage. I just like to put a good amount of money there so I can make some money. But their leverage stuff scares me because I see it move so fast and it doesn't make sense to me. I don't like to, part of me is like, well, if you're trading on you got a six-figure account on there. Let's say you have 100 grand. Why would you risk losing 100 grand being hacked? Couldn't you just, keep 50 on there and have a 2x leverage? And I think like that, but then I'm like, I just never put the two. I always keep it as a one. So, but one of the things I like that Bybit did is that they said that they were going to buy back all that Ethereum, or they did. Obviously, it's going to take a while for people to get paid, but at least they, are making an effort to pay people back. But like I said, this is another day in the crypto sphere, right? And besides the AI, there's that real world asset. I mean, this coin is absolutely tanked. It's all times high. It was, I think, $1. And they just I think they just did like a Michael Jordan card that was worth a lot. They just did a real world asset. They're supposed to have land grants and things like this. You never know on these shit coins. This is just one of those Elon trades. I'm just giving you guys a possible like, oh, here's 6 cents. Spend $1,000, maybe it'll get to $56. You know what I mean? I'm sorry, $56. Maybe it'll get to $1, uh, or 56 cents or something. That was a big resistance on 57 cents, 67 cents. So potential in these coins, if there's an alt season to buy things cheaply. I would not day trade any of these. I would only day trade Bitcoin. And have you noticed I haven't even day traded Ethereum at all since it got hacked? I'm like terrified to trade it. But I think the hack of the Bybit wasn't like Ethereum per se. It was like, I think it was just like, wasn't it like an inside job and a blunder by somebody? I don't really know, but that's what I was reading about. Yes, why don't you move your profit on a cold wallet? Well, I do. I have to pay bills. Yeah. I use 50 leverage and move my profit every week. Oh, you use 50x leverage? I use 50 leverage and move my profit every week. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how that would. I just feel like if I use the 50x leverage with like, I just feel like even if I use like, let's say a small amount of money or whatever, I feel like it would just move so fast against me. I don't know. All right, guys. Well, it was a good sesh today. I know it's been tough in the altcoins, but this is when there's opportunity. In 5 days on March 18th, we'll see what happens. That's supposed to be some event that's going to make an announcement that might make headwaves, and AI coins might boom. But you know, this is the time where you have to have faith because it never feels right when there's blood in the streets to reload in some of these things. But if you want to stick to just trading the ES on a small time frame like a day trade or Bitcoin and just do that, I'm doing both. I'm doing day trades and like for example, besides SWE recently, the only coin I've reloaded into for a portfolio is DOT. Because when it dips below floor, I'm buying it. 50 is a 54, 55 all-time high. It also hit resistance like 3 or 4 times at 50. So, oh, great. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Careful says that he didn't check the address properly. Really? The reason of the hack was human negligence of the owner. He didn't check the address properly. Oh my God. Yeah, that's crazy. Because like, that's nuts that he doesn't have somebody like a professional team overseeing every single digit. That's what I do when I move stuff of way smaller amounts. I have somebody that looks over every single thing with me on Team Viewer because I don't want to make a mistake. And I haven't yet because of it. So, well, people make mistakes. This is a tough game. Um, But yeah, that's crazy that he wouldn't have some kind of yeah, the hacker stuff's tough because they can when you're sending stuff on the wallet, they can switch the address if you don't check it. You'll look in your pin and it won't be there. So besides that, also check the exchange. Never give your pins out. No exchange will ever call you. I had a friend and a client of mine lose $100,000 in Bitcoin because he let quote unquote support have access to his computer to help him. He was on a fake site. They just switched a letter around or something. So anyway, guys, be vigilant, be safe. There's still going to be a lot of opportunities. Oh, you said, unfortunately, buyback can't be used in France. Yeah, buyback can't be used in America either. I kind of have a guy, the associate of mine, who he KYCs for me, and he's helping on my fund. But he just told me, and not only did I choose that because he just happens to be my guy that I've known for a while. Like his country at the time, and still probably does, has a very primitive tax collection. Not that the IRS is amazing because they just fired 90,000 people or whatever, but regarding crypto, they haven't even addressed it. Well, as over here they have, but recently they let their tax collectors tweeted this: "Hey, crypto bros, you better blah 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 on your tax return. You better let us know because we're coming for you." So he got a little kind of, and I moved like a little bit of money off my sub account. Um, so it's always something over there. So it's like I don't know. Besides that, I do trade on another KYC in New Jersey. And that's I have another person, an associate that helps me with that. And I just have to have backups. If they get rid of Bybit, I have to go on here. But yeah, I definitely don't want my friend to get hit with anything for sure. Yeah, it's a good sign for Bybit. They're still alive. And the market kind of reacted, but it's caught, it's sort of stabilizing somewhat. It's not like we're like 20% down or 30% down, even more from that. So yeah, it's kind of like, the Bitfinex thing. I mean, like I said, I just remembered, like, let's just go back in time. Trump was in office. He was saying shitty stuff about crypto. There was no ETFs. There was no big money involved. There was no government positive, blah, blah, blah. And he was talking tariffs and did tariffs and threatened tariffs. And there was this huge, 2020. And then we had like the biggest bull markets ever in crypto. So maybe we'll have that kind of sentiment play out. Yeah, it's good. I used to trade on Bitfinex way back. I used to trade on Bitfinex. I had so much money on Binance with just an email and a password and a text message to my phone back when they didn't KYC using a South Africa VPN without anyone helping back in the day. It's just like the risks I took back then were crazy. Not that it's like better to have a KYC, but I guess it would be easier. I heard that if you got robbed and you didn't have it KYC, they were very reluctant to pay you back. Yeah, I was very risky. I had all my Theta on there back then too. I had a huge account. It's stupid. I did last bull run was very it spoiled people. I think it spoiled their expectations. So that's why this time you got to be a little smarter because everyone kind of grew and it's not behaving the same. So yeah, very risky. We got to diversify where you hold it, put stuff on ledgers, and be vigilant and pray for the best and always do your best and and try to forgive yourself when you mess up. That's my advice. Yeah, all my investments are on cold wallets. I have Trezor, but I basically don't even use that one. I'm all on Ledger. I know people hate Ledger because of whatever, but I never opted in for their third party bullshit. So yeah. All right, guys. Well, thanks for coming out. We'll keep at it in the room and we'll stay on it. And I look forward to that March 18th event. Maybe we'll have a very green week at the end of next week. Yeah, it is because of that for sure. I'd rather be on Trezor. I'm just too lazy to move everything over right now. So hopefully I won't regret it. I have like 3 ledgers. So all right, guys. Thanks for coming out and see you guys in the room. Cheers.